Have you ever felt like something fundamental is shifting in the world around you? That gnawing sensation that we're living through more than just another year, but perhaps standing at the threshold of something unprecedented? You're not alone in this feeling, and what you're experiencing might be far more significant than you realize. There's an electricity in the air that wasn't there before, isn't there? You see it in the eyes of strangers, hear it in conversations at coffee shops, feel it in the restless energy that keeps you scrolling through your phone at midnight, searching for answers to questions you can't quite articulate. The world feels different, charged with possibility and uncertainty in equal measure. Some days you wake up with an inexplicable sense that everything is about to change, while other days you wonder if you're simply imagining patterns where none exist. But what if I told you that this feeling, this intuitive knowing that something monumental is unfolding, was predicted decades ago by one of history's most remarkable visionaries? What if the strange synchronicities you've been noticing, the dreams that feel more real than reality, the sudden urges to question everything you thought you knew about life, what if all of this was foretold by a man who never claimed to be a prophet, yet whose insights have proven unnervingly accurate time and again? Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, spent his life in a trance state, accessing information that seemed to come from beyond the veil of ordinary consciousness. While skeptics dismissed him as a charlatan, his followers witnessed thousands of documented healings and predictions that defied conventional explanation. But perhaps his most intriguing prophecies weren't about individual ailments or personal destinies. They were about humanity itself, about a time when our entire species would undergo a transformation so profound that it would fundamentally alter the course of human history. That time, according to Cayce, is now. The year 2025 wasn't chosen arbitrarily in his visions. It represents a convergence point, a moment when the seeds of change that have been quietly germinating beneath the surface of our collective consciousness would finally break through into the light of day. And if you've been paying attention, really paying attention, you've already started to see the first tender shoots of this transformation pushing through the soil of our reality. Think about the conversations you've been having lately, the books that seem to find their way into your hands, the videos that appear in your feed at exactly the right moment. Notice how topics that once seemed fringe or fantastical are suddenly being discussed in mainstream circles. Meditation apps are downloaded by millions. Ancient wisdom traditions are being studied by quantum physicists, and people from all walks of life are reporting experiences that would have been whispered about in hushed tones just a generation ago. Your grandmother might call it intuition, your therapist might label it increased awareness, and your scientist friend might attribute it to pattern recognition. But whatever name we give to this growing sensitivity, one thing is undeniable. More and more people are sensing that reality is far more fluid and interconnected than we were taught to believe. The boundaries between the physical and the metaphysical, between the individual and the collective, between the possible and the impossible, seem to be dissolving before our eyes. Perhaps you've experienced this firsthand. Maybe you've had a dream that felt prophetic, a meditation that transported you somewhere beyond time and space, or a moment of clarity so profound that it left you questioning the very nature of consciousness itself. Or maybe your awakening has been more subtle, a gradual shift in priorities, an increasing dissatisfaction with superficial pursuits, a deep yearning for meaning and connection that can't be satisfied by the material world alone. This isn't a midlife crisis or a phase you're going through. This is something far more significant. According to Cayce's visions, what you're experiencing is part of a species-wide evolutionary leap, a collective awakening that will fundamentally transform not just how we see the world, but how we interact with it. The old paradigms of separation, competition, and scarcity are giving way to new understandings of unity, collaboration, and abundance. The question isn't whether this change is happening, it's whether you're ready to embrace your role in it. But here's where it gets really interesting, and perhaps a little unsettling. Cayce didn't just predict a gentle, gradual awakening. He spoke of upheaval, of systems collapsing, and new ones emerging from the ashes. He warned of challenges that would test humanity's resolve and force us to choose between fear and love, between clinging to the familiar and embracing the unknown. Does any of this sound familiar when you look at the state of the world today? The political upheavals, the environmental crises, the social unrest, the technological disruptions. What if these aren't just random events, but birth pangs of a new world trying to emerge? What if the chaos and uncertainty you've been feeling aren't signs that everything is falling apart, but evidence that everything is falling into place exactly as it was meant to? This perspective can be both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it suggests that the familiar world we've known is dissolving, and we can't go back to the comfortable illusions that once sustained us. Liberating because it means that the dissatisfaction, the restlessness, the sense that there must be something more. All of this is not only normal but necessary. You're not broken for feeling out of step with a world that increasingly seems insane. You're awake in a world that's still learning to see clearly. The beauty of Cayce's vision for 2025 isn't that it promises an easy transition or a perfect outcome. It's that it offers hope grounded in the recognition that consciousness itself is evolving. The same force that guided the universe from chaos to stars, from single cells to complex organisms, from instinct to self-awareness, is now guiding humanity from separation to unity, from fear to love, from survival to thriving. You are not a passive observer of this transformation. You are an active participant in it. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, curiosity over certainty, connection over isolation, you are contributing to the collective awakening that Cayce saw unfolding in our time. Every moment of authentic presence, every act of genuine kindness, every instant of true understanding creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can imagine. The change has already begun, not just in the world around us, but within us. And as we journey together through these unprecedented times, exploring the mysteries of consciousness, the power of prophecy, and the potential for human transformation, I invite you to become part of a community that recognizes the profound significance of this moment in history. By subscribing and joining our ongoing conversation, you're not just staying informed about these remarkable developments, you're helping to create a space where awakening souls can find each other, share their experiences, and support one another through the magnificent uncertainty of our collective becoming. So let me ask you this: what have you noticed changing in your own life lately? What synchronicities have been showing up? What dreams or intuitions have been trying to get your attention? The comments below aren't just a place to share opinions. They're a sacred space where we can witness each other's awakening and remind one another that we're not alone in this extraordinary journey of consciousness evolution. There's something stirring in the depths of your soul, isn't there? That subtle but persistent feeling that you're not quite the same person you were a year ago, maybe even a month ago. You might dismiss it as imagination, attribute it to the chaos of the world around us, or simply chalk it up to getting older and supposedly wiser. But deep down, in that quiet space where your truest thoughts reside, you know something fundamental has shifted within you, and perhaps within all of us. I remember the first time I truly felt it, not the intellectual understanding of it, but the visceral, undeniable experience of consciousness expanding beyond its familiar borders. It was during a moment of profound stillness, when the constant chatter of my mind finally quieted enough for something deeper to emerge. It felt like waking up from a dream I hadn't realized I was having, suddenly seeing the world through eyes that had been closed for so long, I'd forgotten what true vision looked like. Perhaps you've had a moment like this too, when the veil between what you thought was real and what actually is became so thin it practically dissolved before your awareness. Edgar Cayce, that remarkable soul who spent his life serving as a bridge between worlds, spoke of this time we're living in with such clarity that it sometimes takes my breath away. He saw beyond the year 2025, witnessed it as a pivotal moment when humanity would begin to remember who we really are, beneath all the layers of conditioning and forgetting. But what strikes me most about his vision isn't just the accuracy of his timing, it's the gentleness with which he described this awakening, as if he understood that the journey back to ourselves would be both the most natural and the most challenging thing we'd ever do. You've felt it in your dreams, haven't you? Those nights when sleep becomes a gateway to experiences so vivid, so meaningful, that you wake up questioning which realm is more real. Your dreams have become more lucid, more symbolic, carrying messages that speak directly to your soul in a language your rational mind struggles to translate, but your heart understands perfectly. Sometimes you find yourself remembering dreams from years past with startling clarity, as if your subconscious is organizing itself, preparing for something your waking mind hasn't quite grasped yet. And then there are those moments of knowing, sudden insights that arrive without explanation, understanding that blooms in your consciousness like flowers after rain. You might be having a conversation with a friend and suddenly know exactly what they need to hear, not because you've studied psychology or counseling, but because something within you has opened to a deeper current of wisdom. Or perhaps you've started noticing patterns in your life that once seemed random, but now reveal themselves as part of an intricate tapestry of growth and learning that stretches far beyond coincidence. The technology in your pocket, that device you carry everywhere, has become more than just a communication tool. It's become a mirror reflecting humanity's expanding consciousness back to us. We're connecting across vast distances, sharing experiences and insights that once would have taken lifetimes to accumulate. Ancient wisdom traditions are being discussed in online forums. Meditation apps are guiding millions into inner silence, and healing modalities that were once considered fringe are being validated by quantum physics and neuroscience. It's as if the external world is evolving to match the internal transformation that's been quietly occurring within each of us. But perhaps the most profound shift you've noticed is in how you relate to healing itself. The old model of fixing what's broken has given way to something far more elegant, a understanding that healing is really about remembering wholeness, returning to a state of integration that was always available but somehow forgotten. You might find yourself drawn to practices that honor the body's innate wisdom, approaches that treat symptoms as messengers rather than enemies, modalities that recognize the connection between emotional patterns and physical manifestation. This isn't just alternative medicine gaining popularity, it's consciousness itself expanding to embrace a more complete understanding of what it means to be human. The changes aren't limited to personal experience either. You've probably noticed how conversations in your community have deepened, how people are asking different questions, seeking more meaningful connections. There's a growing dissatisfaction with surface-level interactions, a hunger for authenticity that can't be satisfied by small talk and social media feeds. People are gathering in circles again, sharing stories that matter, creating spaces for vulnerable truth-telling that our ancestors would recognize even if the forms look different. Yet with all this opening comes a certain rawness, doesn't it? As consciousness expands, it illuminates not just the light within us, but also the shadows we've been carrying. Old wounds surface to be healed. Patterns that once served us reveal their limitations, and relationships that can't hold the new frequency of who we're becoming naturally fall away. This can feel like loss, like grief, like a death of sorts, because in many ways it is. The person you were is making space for the person you're becoming, and transition always requires a kind of letting go that can leave us feeling temporarily untethered. Sometimes you might catch yourself grieving for the simplicity of ignorance, missing the days when you could sleepwalk through life without the responsibility of heightened awareness. There's a weight that comes with consciousness, a burden of knowing that can feel overwhelming when you realize how much healing our world needs, how much love it lacks, how much fear we've collectively agreed to carry. But then something shifts, and you remember that this awakening isn't just about seeing what's wrong. It's about recognizing your own capacity to be part of what's right. The intuitive abilities that are emerging within you aren't supernatural powers. They're natural faculties that were always present but dormant, like seeds waiting for the right conditions to sprout. Your increasing sensitivity to energy, your ability to sense what others are feeling, your moments of precognitive awareness. These are signs of consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of individual identity into recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness. When you truly understand that separation is an illusion, telepathy stops seeming magical and starts feeling inevitable. What moves me most about this time we're living in is how it's revealing the profound courage required to be fully human. It takes tremendous bravery to feel everything, to stay open when it would be easier to shut down, to trust the process when you can't see where it's leading. You're navigating uncharted territory not just personally but collectively, serving as a pioneer of consciousness in a time when such pioneers are desperately needed. The material concerns that once dominated your thinking, the endless pursuit of more stuff, more status, more external validation, have started to feel hollow, haven't they? Not because there's anything wrong with material comfort, but because you're beginning to recognize that your deepest needs can't be met by anything external. The abundance you're seeking isn't about accumulation, but about alignment. Not about having more, but about being more fully yourself. This shift from scarcity to abundance consciousness isn't just changing how you relate to money and possessions. It's transforming how you understand your place in the web of existence. You're beginning to see that there's enough love, enough wisdom, enough grace to go around, that sharing these gifts multiplies rather than diminishes them. The old competitive model of consciousness is giving way to collaborative creation, and you're finding yourself naturally drawn to contribute to something larger than your individual story. As I reflect on all these changes, all these openings, all these moments of recognition and remembering, I'm struck by how perfectly they align with what Cayce saw unfolding in our time. We're not just witnessing the awakening of human consciousness, we're living it, breathing it, embodying it with every choice we make to love instead of fear, to connect instead of separate, to trust instead of control. This conversation we're having right now, this sharing of insights and experiences, is itself part of the awakening. Every time we choose to speak our truth, to listen with open hearts, to create spaces for authentic connection, we're contributing to the collective evolution of consciousness that Cayce predicted would characterize this pivotal time in human history. If these words have touched something in you, if they've helped you feel less alone in your journey of awakening, then perhaps you'd like to continue this exploration together, to be part of a community that's committed committed to supporting each other through this magnificent transformation we're all navigating. Your presence here, your willingness to grow and question and remain open, is exactly the kind of consciousness our world needs more of right now. Standing here at the crossroads of prophecy and reality, I find myself thinking about you, yes, you specifically, and wondering what brought you to this moment of seeking, this place of questioning that led you to explore the mysteries of consciousness and transformation. Perhaps you're like me, someone who has spent years feeling caught between worlds, simultaneously drawn to the mystical and grounded in the practical, searching for that sweet spot where ancient wisdom meets modern understanding. There's something both humbling and terrifying about recognizing that we might be living through the very transformation that Edgar Cayce saw unfolding decades before we were born. When I look at the world around us, the unprecedented changes, the collective awakening, the systems crumbling and rebuilding themselves, I can't help but feel a mixture of awe and responsibility that sometimes takes my breath away. We're not just witnessing history being written, we're the ones holding the pen whether we fully realize it or not. You've probably felt it too, that strange sensation of being both an observer and a participant in something far larger than your individual story. Maybe it hit you during one of those quiet moments when the chaos of the world suddenly crystallized into perfect clarity, when you could see the threads connecting seemingly random events into a pattern of transformation so intricate and purposeful that it left you speechless. Or perhaps it came through the accumulation of smaller recognitions, the way people in your life have been changing, the conversations that have been shifting, the questions that have been emerging from places within yourself you didn't even know existed. I remember the first time I truly understood what it meant to be part of a collective awakening, rather than just pursuing personal growth. It was during a period of intense global upheaval, when everything familiar seemed to be dissolving and I found myself oscillating between despair and hope with dizzying frequency. In that space of uncertainty, I began to notice how my own internal struggles were being mirrored in the world around me, how my journey toward healing and wholeness was somehow connected to humanity's larger process of transformation. The personal became political, the spiritual became practical, and suddenly I understood that there was no separation between my own evolution and the evolution of consciousness itself. This realization brought with it a profound sense of purpose, but also a weight of responsibility that sometimes felt overwhelming. If we truly are the generation tasked with midwifing a new age into existence, if our choices and consciousness genuinely matter in ways that ripple far beyond what we can see, then every moment becomes sacred. Every decision becomes an opportunity to either serve the emerging future or cling to the dying past. Some days this feels like the greatest privilege imaginable. Other days it feels like a burden too heavy to carry. But here's what I've learned through years of wrestling with this paradox. The transformation Cayce predicted isn't something that happens to us. It's something that happens through us, as us, because of us. We're not passive recipients of prophetic fulfillment. We're active co-creators of the future that's trying to emerge. Every time you choose love over fear, curiosity over certainty, connection over separation, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Every moment of authentic presence, every act of genuine compassion, every instance of standing in your truth despite the discomfort it might cause, these are the building blocks of the new reality that's taking shape all around us. The skeptic in me, and I imagine the skeptic in you too, sometimes wonders if we're reading too much meaning into coincidence, seeing patterns where none exist, desperately hoping for significance in what might just be the random unfolding of events. This doubt isn't something to be dismissed or overcome. It's a healthy counterbalance to unchecked belief, a necessary component of discernment that keeps us grounded even as we explore the edges of possibility. The beauty of this moment in history is that we don't need to choose between skepticism and openness. We can hold both simultaneously, allowing doubt and wonder to dance together in the spaciousness of an uncertain but pregnant present. What moves me most about Cayce's vision for our time is not its specificity, but its invitation. He didn't predict a transformation that would happen regardless of our participation. He saw the potential for transformation if enough of us were willing to do the inner work necessary to become the change we wish to see in the world. The prophecy isn't a guarantee. It's a possibility that becomes more likely with every soul who chooses to awaken, to heal, to remember their connection to the whole. As we move beyond 2025 and into whatever comes next, I find myself less concerned with the accuracy of specific predictions and more interested in the quality of consciousness we're bringing to each moment. The future isn't fixed. It's fluid, responsive to the collective dreams and decisions of beings like you and me who are learning to see beyond the veil of separation that has defined human experience for so long. We're not just preparing for change, we are the change, embodying it with every breath, every choice, every moment of presence we offer to this world that needs our love so desperately. The pain you've carried, the struggles you've endured, the moments when you questioned everything you thought you knew about reality. None of this was meaningless suffering. It was preparation, initiation, the forging of a soul strong enough to hold space for transformation, not just within yourself but within the collective human story. Your sensitivity, your questions, your refusal to accept easy answers, these aren't signs of weakness or confusion. They're evidence of a consciousness that's being called to participate in the greatest adventure our species has ever undertaken, the conscious evolution of human awareness itself. There are moments when I look at the state of the world and feel overwhelmed by how much healing is needed, how much love is lacking, how much fear we've collectively agreed to carry. But then I remember that transformation has always been messy, that birth has always involved labor, that every expansion of consciousness throughout history has required some souls to be willing to venture into the unknown territories of possibility. We are those souls, you and I, explorers of consciousness in an age when such exploration isn't just personal luxury, but collective necessity. The invitation before us isn't to become something we're not, but to remember something we've always been, conscious participants in the ongoing creation of reality itself. The prophecies, the predictions, the ancient wisdom and modern insights, these are all pointing toward the same recognition, that consciousness is not confined to individual minds, but is the very fabric from which reality is woven, and we have far more influence over that weaving than we've been taught to believe. As I reach the end of these reflections, I find myself filled with gratitude for this moment we're sharing, this connection across time and space that allows us to explore these mysteries together. The conversation we've been having isn't just about prophecy or transformation. It's about the courage it takes to remain open in a world that often rewards closing down, to keep questioning in a culture that prefers easy answers, to trust in possibilities that can't be proven but can be lived. If these words have resonated with something deep within you, if they've helped you feel less alone in your journey of awakening, then perhaps you'd be interested in continuing this exploration together, not as followers of any particular teaching, but as fellow travelers on the pathless path of consciousness evolution, supporting each other through the challenges and celebrating together the moments of breakthrough that make all the struggle worthwhile. Your presence in this conversation, your willingness to consider these possibilities, your openness to transformation, this is exactly the kind of consciousness our world needs more of as we navigate whatever comes next in this grand adventure of becoming fully human.